Welcome and appreciate you being here. I learned this morning already, how do you confuse a geek? You don't put parking meters on the second floor of the parking deck. Somebody gets that. I'm glad. See now I'm inside joke for somebody. I'm sure somebody in the audience went past the first floor and didn't find any parking meters. Why are there no parking meters in this place? Well, you just blew right past the first floor. Okay. It's early. I understand all that. Just in case storms happen, but I think we're going to be lucky today. We have had storms every time we've had a PSP annual meeting. Seems to be the time of year things happen. But I think we're going to blow through it this week without any of that. There is a door in the back. We had it open yesterday. It was a wonderful thing. And if there are tornadoes, the place to go is that direction to the other door and downstairs. We do have a basement here. So that's where we will head. Restrooms far end of this floor as well. Everything will be in here today, with the exception of dinner. And we'll have some more instructions on how to get there for that. We will have presentations and panels throughout the day here. We'll have lunch right here as well. We will take a quick tour through the data center for those of you who have not seen that. We're going to squeeze that in then before reception and dinner. So actually, I'm not sure we're doing Wi-Fi instructions with name tags anymore. Sorry, I should have killed that maybe from last year. But oh, you do. Okay, I'm sticking to my story. We want to talk about something in the theme today that is rather special, and we got through some of this yesterday with the partners only, and that's this notion of relevant scale and convergence. So we'll talk. Set that up a little bit more here just in my comments this morning. You can hear from Ed a little bit on that here as well. Let me mention as well that we will have a book signing in here. Any of you who wish to buy the book that you've seen out front, we do have a local book shop that's going to be out here with books and a cash register and able to sell. So that'll happen at 5 today. So we are in the agenda tight and have not booked in hard breaks. So those of you who were here yesterday had some breaks, but we're not going to do that today. So if you need to step out, just please do so. And we're just going to go wall to wall today if we can get that done. Tomorrow we're going to do the same, 8:30 to noon. And those of you who are here, we'll also have box lunches in case you need to scoot with lunch and head out on your way. We're here for a specific reason: to talk. We do a pretty good job of this by what I watched over dinner last night. That is to chat with each other, chat with our team, chat with whomever. I'll tell the story just one more time that some of you heard yesterday morning, that Jerry Budai from Boeing had come here, my first annual meeting 8 years ago, and said his typical MO for visiting with universities is to get into a room, shut the door, and talk to themselves. Some of you professors in the room know that can happen. And the private sector program annual meeting is the only place he would go to routinely where he would get to talk to other companies. I heard that repeated with some folks yesterday here, that, we didn't quite know maybe what you did, but we really didn't know what these other guys were doing. So that value proposition here is real. And we have, I would say, broad swath of industry coming to this meeting here, some of the best among the HPC user communities from industry. So we're pleased. So I do want you to know who we have on our team here today. So if you're on our team, not all of you are in the picture, but please stand up. Where are you? Ahmed, you're up front. There's Evan. Sade in red. Scott's over here in the corner. Madhu, Chi Yu. We've got quite a team. I'm very pleased to hear the comments from yesterday on the technical sessions that, surprisingly, I suppose, oh, I didn't know you guys were so deep technically. Well, we don't do such a good job marketing, so we're going to try to get better at that. Thank you guys for standing up. But the conversations are important here, and we aim to foster that. This is our largest meeting ever. We got more than 200 registrations. I don't think everybody's going to be in the room at the same time, same hour of the day. However, more than 70 companies here present, companies and organizations. So that's a nice number, and we typically have in about the range of 20, the Fortune 500 size firms, and that typically is a billion and up in revenues. So we're heavily slanted toward the large firms here because that's who we deal with on the R&D side, the heavy science, the heavy engineering. Those firms have fleets of PhDs that seem to know where things break, and that has been our specialty, is to help bridge the gap when things break in science and engineering with the digital tools that we have. It's not to say that we don't work with the smaller companies. We certainly do, and some of the smaller firms are in the room and organizations here as well. The common theme across that all the way is digital matters. It's not limited to modeling and simulation. It's certainly larger than that. But we also have as partners leading tech companies. And in this tech space, most often the tech companies at these events, if I think of SC and other meetings, they're led by the vendor side as sales guys. You want to sell more stuff, I know that, and we love your stuff. But the one opportunity we have here is a chance to be strategic. And I've got to say that the tech companies that have partnered with us have bought into that. They understand the strategic conversations, and we had some good ones in that vein yesterday. So, and they're not just HPC companies. They're not just HPC hardware. We've got software, and we've got some other companies. I'll show the partners here in a moment. But we represent 5 sectors now in our partnerships, and we're pretty proud of that. We've added a couple of categories that we didn't used to have. And 25 partners is also a new number for us. Kevin Hofstetter, you and I were talking yesterday, it must have been 8 years ago, we had less than 10. I was also reminded that one of our first early partner-only meetings was in the boardroom right back here, and we had 20 people around the table, and that was it. Yesterday we had 75 partners here from 25 companies. So real pleased with that. So we have chosen, partly because we can and we understand the issues, to partner with the smaller firms, also with the ISVs. We've got several ISVs in the room here, the independent software vendors, the commercial code vendors. Now at the moment, those have been led mostly by the firms that are serving the manufacturing community. And that's just fine. That's a large base, long-lived base, mature codes, and we have reached out there in some new ways to help those folks, particularly since we got Blue Waters on the floor. We also have a lot of domain experts in the room. We need to have domain experts as well, so we can actually have intelligent conversations with their clients. And that has been a special way to add value. The last word there, convergence. There are a number of ways to describe this, and I'll get to that on a slide here momentarily. So our partner categories are this. We've got manufacturers in the top left. We've had some other manufacturers come and go. We've got some folks who have hung with us for a long time. Caterpillar, one of the early partners we had many, many years ago. The newest one there is Dow. The Dow Chemical is in our research park, and it's a logical step to engage with campus in special ways and not ignore the opportunity to engage directly with NCSA. So that has been a good move for both of us. Oil and gas on the top right. Ag and life sciences is in the bottom left. So a little, do we call 3 firms there critical mass? Well, what's interesting is We get a conversation between Syngenta and Mayo, and good things happen. And then you get a conversation between Syngenta and let's just say P&G. Here is in the manufacturing list, but yet they make things in other ways. So what is so gratifying here is that the conversations we have that cross sectors can become valuable. And sometimes they're not anticipated, but valuable nonetheless. Bottom right are institutes. We never used to partner with institutes, but one of the challenges we have had in trying to grow one company to one company as partners is how do we scale that? How do we impact more organizations? So these institutes serve others in their own right. So the Applied Research Institute here on campus serves clients in their own right. So does the Prairie Research Institute. Milwaukee Institute is here. We want to help them do it better with other places as well. So nice way to get more touch points out in their worlds. But impressive here is this center technology sector. Now the rules for this sector is, yes, we want to partner with you. We want to think ahead about what it is that we can do together. In order to do so, please come, but take off your sales hat and not just wear that hat, but put on a strategic hat. What can we think to do together to actually serve other clients in the room? And we had some good conversations yesterday, I believe, and what I had observed. So every one of these companies that has chosen to partner with us has agreed to those rules, so to speak, and actually has bought into it. And it's gratifying to see some of those who would obviously be competitors on the sales side actually agree to be strategic and partner with us in ways that can move the dial a bit. So newest partners in that group, Data Direct Networks, DDN, had partnered just a few months back. CharmWorks, a spinoff from a faculty member here that actually does some very interesting software work. Actually has a location in the research park. So CharmWorks just partnered with us in the past year. I think that included Alinea coming in. Questech, spin-off from a professor's operation at Northwestern University. These folks do deep materials simulations and so forth. I don't believe anyone from there is here today, but relatively small company, but very powerful on the materials side, the materials modeling. You manufacturers in the room certainly need that, but some of the rest of you as well. AMD has just partnered with us as well. We aim to be agnostic with Intel up there at the same time. And we mean it. We do want to be agnostic. We want to be independent and understand how to put together the kinds of resources to solve the problems that you folks as partners are bringing to us. Let me also suggest that our approach is to serve a need and solve problems. That's why we want to partner. It's why we have the partnership. In order to do that, we need to be able to figure out what that problem is and not jump to conclusions and not to throw technology at something that is supposed to work. So some of the things we do is we benchmark. We test to failure. So we do DevOps, we do some test ops. I love those words and those ideas. So when we test to failure, the vendor actually learns something. We often test to spec. We don't always test to failure. So if we can bring input decks in from industry, we can bring big problems in from industry, push the heck out of it, break things. Actually, our team loves to break things. Every few weeks we go around the room and ask what they broke and try to keep a record of that. So this convergence of talent, this convergence of people, the convergence of these partners and the tech companies in the room, this is a pretty unique room. All of you in this room are here because you have seen some of the possibilities. So help us help you and understand what it is that we can bring to the table to do things a little bit differently. This world is increasingly digital. My goodness, and it's not limited to the modeling and simulation space that has been classically the HPC space. Certainly the data and simulation is merging in ways like never before. So help us help you in that sense. And this critical mass, we sort of underestimate sometimes how powerful this critical mass really is, but it is powerful if we intend to use it in that way. I was delighted to have conversations at dinner last night from one of you who came to me and said, you know what, you ought to go grab this software vendor and do something for these folks, and you could do this for them and take that off their plate, and then they could concentrate on features and other stuff. Wow, that is a good idea. So great ideas, keep them coming. NCSA has been around a fair amount of time, and the industrial program, I believe, is what it was called at the time in the early days, and we've just changed the name, but we've also changed a few of the things that we have done. I want to point out particularly here this triple D there in the middle. Most of you have R&D operations. We even in our own building here have R&D operations. We know what R&D means, the research and development. What we have as a special place is not where we begin with development. We do a little bit of research here, but mostly the campus folks to the south of us do that pure fundamental research. So we do development and demonstration and deployment. We deploy systems for production purposes. We demonstrate, as I said, we will test to failure. And we're actually happy and thrilled to do that. And we'll also demonstrate with input decks and problems from industry in ways that can leverage the modern hardware and software and talent to do that. So just want to suggest those triple Ds we try to concentrate on. Now to the convergence. A few definitions. One classical one is convergence. That's a place where a community comes together to learn and connect and be inspired. I saw evidence of that yesterday. So indeed, that is a place for convergence. One definition. Might also be able to say that this is where HPC and data come together. We know what HPC does. There are some firms out there, I think IDC says HPDA, there is also this high performance data analytics flavor that's a little like HPC, so maybe that's two branches to a tree. Others have said HPC plus D, whatever it is we say, these two are coming together like never before. So HPC and data. So when we say HPC, we do indeed mean that the data comes with that, not limited to the modeling and simulation. In the biology field, convergence means a tendency of unrelated animals and plants to, as you see there, to come together. But if we take that approach and look at the tech business, we also see differing tech systems evolve to perform similar tasks. So this convergence just in our private sector program is pretty valuable, because we had a client company we were doing some contract consulting with in the field, and there was a need to test something that they wanted to buy. The vendor didn't want to give their stuff to the client because they didn't trust them to run it well enough. The client didn't want to give their data to the vendor because they wanted to keep that protected. So, you know, how can we drive before we buy that fancy car? So they came to us. So we bolted the hardware into our iForge system, and we brought the data in from the other. We acted as a middleman in between, and we brought this community together to actually test things, and we tested to failure. The company came in and we had a conversation with them. They said two things. One, Alex Parger, are you in the room? No, our data file systems guy had a conversation with him. How'd you break it? Did you do this? Blah, blah, blah. Some conversation in the corner of the room, just wonderful to watch. But the business folks then said, well, we didn't know that there was any place like you that we could go to work with, to help test our stuff, help sell our stuff, light up the customer that we're trying to sell. So we've stumbled upon this in a behavioral way. We didn't know how powerful that was. A customer comes in and says, you know what, this is really, really good stuff. Now, we still have their stuff bolted into iForge, and we still work together in some special ways. So, ton of fun, and one of the ways in which we can work together. So these differing systems, we see it all the time. The tech vendors we have in the room here, there's new stuff coming on. Can we determine how well it works? Can some of the companies in the room bring things in to test it? Yes. Yes to all the above. In the telecommunications space, I actually like that convergence as well. But there's one other aspect that I want to point out here, and this is a bit of the relevant scale conversation that we're going to have here, and the convergence, all this conversation that fits together today and tomorrow, is that HPC historically, at the high end, has been funded by governments, Department of Energy here, certainly NSF, government agencies, to push and enable the discovery of science. Only certain things can be done on high-end HPC that could never be done anywhere else. We've got stories galore here. We probably don't tell them all well. You'll hear some with Blue Waters here in a bit this morning. What are the stories coming out of Blue Waters? What sort of science is getting done? And I'm a business guy, and I'm still lit up by these science stories. They're fascinating, what these people can do with access to the right resources and the talent in which to make this happen. There's a business professor in the room here, and he also gets that idea. So this convergence, the scientific discovery, and the production. All of you companies in the room are selling things. You've got to get product out the door. You've either got a dock putting bulldozers off of it, or you've got a dock of another kind. Every one of you sells something. So what drives your operation is this production side. So I want to put out this notion as well, and Ed's going to back this up a little bit with some comments here in a bit, is this convergence also between the discovery and commercialization. We've done a few things with our partner groups that have pushed the boundaries of understanding really what are the investment drivers from industry that make a difference. We know product is involved. We know the classical HPC things with reduced cost, reduced time to market, and all those kinds of things. Today's HPC is doing even more. It's not just reduced cost and time to market. It's opportunistic to do things that have never before been capable without HPC. So it's actually new behaviors. The investment in HPC is driving new behaviors. New markets, often, and we get into these conversations in so many venues that it looks like the investment is a zero-sum game. We only have so much money, so if you're going to invest in HPC, I'm going to take it away from somebody else, or I'm going to take your HPC investment and I'm going to give it to somebody else as well. Some of the discussions we had yesterday were very helpful in that this may be uniquely in, I'm sure it's not unique in history, but we are at a very wonderful point here where HPC is an enabler to actually expand the pie and offer new opportunities and show that this is not a zero-sum game. The ROIs that are coming from HPC, IDC's done some good work with this and some others. The ROIs are in the triple digits. What business have you ever been in that was ever able to see triple-digit returns? That's why HPC is an enabler, a powerful, powerful enabler. So I'd just say certainly that what we observe here is digital is the only way to do certain things. Again, the Blue Water story, we've got a number of stories there. The classical one is Klaus Schulten and some of the computational microscope that he talks about. Some things at the atom level are impossible to do in a wet lab. Absolutely cannot be done. Let's think about the materials level for some of you folks out there in manufacturing. Some of these things cannot be observed experimentally. Mayo Clinic, my goodness, the things you do This digital space is an enabler. It's the only way to get things done. So how do we rationalize this? How do we invest accordingly? How do we do R&D and the other triple Ds? That is what we're going to be talking about. This is sort of the idea. We've got research on the left side, a lot of that going on campus, a lot of that going on in other facilities. We've got product going out the door on the right side. In the middle, a lot of development, a lot of demonstration, a lot of deployment. That middle is where we mitigate risk. The middle part is where we lower uncertainty. We aren't worried about all the uncertain things on the research side. Klaus Schulten says it so well. You know, we wanted to look at the capsid, this little capsule that holds a virus. Well, why are you doing that? That's not going to tell you anything. Well, we're researchers. That's why we do it. And then they found out things that nobody knew. Just stunning things that they found out. So that's the discovery phase. But then if we take the discovery and we lower uncertainty, we can make things happen. Let's look at it this way. The government says the funding that occurs on the left is largely from governments and universities. We understand this. We get grants. We do things. Manufacturing likes this technology readiness level line with numbers attached. I kind of like this. You know, we know maybe it's not really linear, but the far right side is we're going to the moon, or we're doing things at scale, or we're launching a video game operation that's going to have 1 million hits the first day. That's the far right. So what happens in the middle? This funding perspective. There's no classical funding in the middle. Governments and universities do not fund the middle, and they don't fund the right side. The banks, venture capital, the commercialization efforts fund the right side, but they don't fund the middle. So we at NCSA are finding ourselves here in the middle with an opportunity to prototype, develop some things in other ways, push digital technology in ways that nobody else ever has. You and your company are worried about maybe dealing with 800 terabytes of data? No problem. We know how to deal with 400 petabytes. Bring it on. We de-risk. We work in the middle. So come to us. There's no funding. So this is the challenge also in our conversations today. How do we build funding paths to de-risk and lower the uncertainty on the way to commercialization? The valley of death is real. Workflow is king. Minimum relevant scale. What's the science that needs to get done? How much computing is actually needed to accomplish the minimum level of scientific insight, the minimum level of discovery, or the minimum level of lowering uncertainty? This is new space for HPC, but it's a fun place to be. We have done much more of this in the last 2 years than ever in our history. The reason it's a fun place to be is because of you in this room. We have worked intimately with a number of companies in this room. We spent months on projects with some of you here. The closer you seem to get to us and the closer we get to you, the more fun we have and the more things we light up. So I just want to suggest here, I'm not going to get into details of what the computers do, but we've got a beast of a computer with Blue Waters. Not a beast in the sense that it is so hard to run, but it's just huge, powerful, like none other, well balanced, all sorts of other things that we won't get into here. We also, and it's designed for discovery computing. It's designed to hit the relevant scale of science at levels that have never been achieved before. But we also have another machine that our program put on the floor 4 years ago called iForge that we put on with our own money. Because we couldn't entice any of you in the room to invest rather blindly into a new machine because you didn't know what that ROI might be. So we decided, okay, we'll do it ourselves. It worked. Business models matter. So the point with this slide is, here, at a one-stop shop, you can get access to both. You can do your discovery. You can also do your productization. And get a crackerjack team of experts to help you get there. I'm thinking the guys in this picture are in the room. This is a ton of fun. The floor, so this is the tour you'll be able to take this afternoon. The point I want to make here is that innovation is not the same as invention. We live in the middle where innovation occurs. It's the de-risking and the lowering of uncertainty that actually drives innovation. It's the coming together. It's that convergence that makes that happen. The only way to follow the classical definition of innovation is actually to turn something into an engineered product or service. That's what we want to help you do. This is the talent that's needed to pull it off. Domain experts, you've got a lot of them in your companies. We've got a few of them here. If we run out of domain expertise, we go south to the next building, and then we'll go south again to the next building. We'll find some more domain experts on this campus. And we mint more of them every year. But the domain experts are not necessarily taught how to program. We had a little of that conversation about parallelization yesterday, so we need to get these folks on the right on software together with the domain folks, put them in the same room. They don't talk the same language, but they can. Every bit of science that goes on these days has more and more software embedded in it. But then even the software people here don't necessarily know HPC. HPC is not IT. So now we need a third person in the room. The HPC expert, with the domain expert, with the software guys. But then we also need somebody to understand and interpret the business challenges. If we're going to do the triple D play, we've got to understand the business. So we need somebody who can understand the business in the room at the same time. If we get all four of those in the room at the same time, good things happen. We actually have seen that. We observe it, and we do it, and we live it every day because we have all four of those talents in this building. Business models matter. The convergence of data and computing matters more and more. No single company, and this is my story and I'll stick to it, no single agency, no single government can do it all. Those business models matter, especially in the middle, if we want to be an innovation nation. Our NCSA leadership is making an impact, and the partner benefits are real. Glad you're here. We will continue the conversation throughout the day. We're going to have a little bit of fun also as well, but in the meantime, I want Ed to continue to bring home this idea of convergence. So please meet our director here of NCSA, Ed Seidel.